Welcome to today's session. Thank you for those who are in attendance. Today we're going to discuss mastery paths in Canvas. My name is Terry Locklear. I'm from the Office of Online Learning. So our objective for today is by the end of this session, you should be able to explain the underlying principles of mastery paths and apply those paths in your course. So application of the skills and concepts we're going to be learning here during this presentation are really discipline and topic specific. These concepts may only or most likely will be only applicable or easily applied to objective topics and sort of subject matters. So those subjective subjects or subjective subject matters may not be optimal for mastery paths. So before we dive into this conversation about the nuts and bolts of mastery paths, let's kind of zoom out a little bit and establish a broader, maybe a more theoretical type of understanding of the underlying principle that leads to mastery paths. So just taking a quick step back, really this kind of all routes back to competency-based learning. So what is competency-based learning? Transitioning away from seat time in favor of a structure that creates flexibility. Competency-based learning allows students to progress through lessons as they demonstrate mastery of content, kind of regardless of time or pace of learning. It provides a flexible way in which credit can be earned. And along the way, it kind of creates these personalized learning opportunities. This type of learning really leads to student engagement because the content is really relevant to each student and tailored to their unique needs. And it also leads to better outcomes because of the pace of learning is sort of customized around each student or tailored around each student as well. So now that we've discussed the concepts of competency-based, let's dig a little deeper into conceptualizing mastery paths by discussing decision trees. So this is essentially just decision trees here. A decision tree is sort of like a flow chart in structure with each internal node representing some test on an attribute, for example, whether a coin flip is heads or tails, up or down, yes or no, in and out, those sorts of trees. And each branch represents the outcome of a test, and each leaf node represents a class activity with a decision made after computing all of these attributes. Again, there's one more piece of this that's kind of getting a little closer to our target here, and that is adaptive learning. So really what we're going for is this concept of adaptive learning. Adaptive learning is an educational method that uses computer algorithms to sort of orchestrate interactions with the learner and deliver customized resources and activities uniquely addressed to each learner's need. So in this example here, you'll see Bloom's taxonomy on the left, and at the bottom two on the hierarchy, understanding and remember. That's where adaptive learning, the concept comes in, because much of this can take place kind of before class, quote unquote class. And then, and with this discusses class, is kind of going back to our decision tree, so we can think of a class as sort of an expected path. Now on the right side here, we can see that the adaptive system represents in the top portion of the graph. So you've got this sort of adaptive system here in the top portion of the graph. And this is essentially saying that as this system allows students to prepare and prove themselves sort of through course preparation and assessments before, quote unquote, again, class, or in the case of mastery paths, maybe even you can skip over some content based on their assessments and when they've exhibited mastery of the content. When students have shown you that they can master the content, we can kind of make time a little bit more flexible. which leads right into this discussion, which is it's really asking us this concept. Fundamentally, is kind of asking us to rethink what we see serves as variables and what we see as fixed. So we're kind of in a theoretical discussion still here. Let's think about what's typically a variable and typically what's fixed. In a typical or normal class situation, time is fixed, right? So you've got a 16-week course, maybe like a 1-week module, and that's time is really what's fixed in most situations. And the variable is grades, and sometimes you kind of scratch our heads and wonder how some students, given the same amount of time, the same concepts, the same lessons and materials, that grades can kind of vary, so widely. So what we're going for here is mastery. We really want to navigate away from making grades a variable and move more toward making time a variable and mastery or grades more fixed. We want to work toward having fixed grades instead of having those grades all over the place. So now we're here. We've arrived at Canvas, and so what are mastery paths? So they allow you, through the Canvas system, to sort of create all of these sort of outcomes we've previously discussed here. It allows you to create those customized learning experiences based on student performance. You can enable mastery paths to automatically assign coursework based on scores achieved through previous assignments. And now let me shift to a quick demo of mastery paths here. Okay. So I already imported some content here from the course commons. This is actually the most popular mastery paths template on the course commons, and essentially it's a lesson about pandas. So in order for you to use mastery paths in your course, the first thing you need to do excuse me, within your course shell is go down to settings and then feature options and make sure mastery paths are enabled here. Okay, so if I go back to home here, excuse me, and I click on mastery paths, you can kind of see what we have here at work. So with the first little test here, if somebody scores a 0 to 3, they're going to take this path. If somebody makes a 4 to 6, they're going to take this path. And from 7 to 10, this is the way they're routed. So if I come back here and click on home and go to student view, here in student view, you can see that the first thing we got to do is sort of take this pretest on what do you already know about pandas, right? And this portion is locked until we take this little assessment, okay? So let's go ahead and go through this really quick. What do we know about pandas? There's 8 questions and it's 10 points. I'm going to take this quiz. What do we already know? So question number 1, where do pandas live? I think it's only in China. I'm really kind of guessing here. Number 2, how many are left in the wild? We'll say 160. Okay, what sounds do they make? We'll say this. Not sure, but we'll see. How many hours a day do they sleep? I hear pandas are really lazy, so I'm going to go 12. What do pandas like to eat? I know they like bamboo. Number 6, only got 2 more. What are they capable of doing? They like to swim. Okay, we'll see. I'm just kind of rolling the dice. What do pandas have to protect? Yep, thick fur. Okay. Okay, we'll say this fur. they have a thick layer of, we'll say fur. Okay, next. Okay, last one. Why are they becoming endangered? We'll just say running out of room, and I'm going to submit. So I'm submitting as a student. Oh, good, man, 9 out of 10. Wow. Okay, so if I go back home here, you'll see that, okay, it's graded, but I'm not sure why I'm not sure why it's,
Terry?
Yes, hello?
I have a question. So you would give them this first quiz before you expose them to the material or after you expose them to the material?
So in my mind, the way this would work is we would sort of kind of go through lesson one, right? And then ever how they I would base whether or not they access lesson two based on how they perform on some sort of assessment in lesson one. And you could even apply it before you could apply the concept before lesson one if you've got a course that maybe there was a prerequisite and you want them to have some requisite knowledge coming in the door. Really, it depends on how detrimental not having that knowledge would be. So you can kind of think about how you want students to or you want to apply these concepts in your course. Okay.
So this is Rita. I think the idea is that you see how much students know, and then based on what they know, you tailor their assignments to that group. So if they get a 9 out of 10, they already know a lot about pandas. So you're going to give them more of an extension assignment rather than an assignment where you're teaching them about pandas.
So conceptually, right? So yeah, absolutely. You can apply these concepts ever how you feel necessary. So if you can apply it on these are concepts on a course level, or you can apply them sort of on a weekly or a module level. So you think of these mastery paths could be used for an entire self-paced course. If all the material is objective and it's kind of everything's black and white, you can imagine a situation where you've got this complete course just using mastery paths. As long as the routing is there and correct. So right now I'm going to leave.
So this reminds me of a long time ago, I don't know if you all remember, they had the 3R reading, they still use it some, the 3R reading mastery program in schools. And you couldn't go on to the next level unless you passed everything on the level before. And if you didn't pass, then you would do something remedial and come back and take it again.
Yes, this is exactly.
Yeah, only it's the technology version, not the paper pencil version.
So really, I mean, if we think about it, going back to this decision tree, it may look like creating these mastery paths in Canvas is a lot of work, but I would argue that you probably have all of the ingredients for this in your course already. If you think about it, you probably have everything, or most of what's needed for these paths, because what's going on here is, you've got this pre-test and then an expected path. So this is probably how you're routing students now anyway, right? You're routing them through this expected path, which is, targeted activities and content. But what's going to happen, here is just imagine if we're on lesson 2, if they didn't perform as well here, you're going to kind of route them back to, lesson 1, which is a support path, and say, well, maybe you want to go back, and take a look at this material again, and looking. And if they do well, you say, well, you don't even have to go to chapter 3 or lesson 3. Maybe you can go on to lesson 4, which you already have the content created for that, most likely. So if you're looking at all of these possible scenarios, the only thing that you may need that you don't already have is maybe like these two. If you maybe like out of 100, if they make like a 25 or below, you might want to add something here that kind of routes them back to not necessarily 1 but 0. So if you think about this, it can kind of look daunting, when you think about all of the possibilities for possible paths and possible ways in which this can be applied to students. But I really think at the end of the day, we've already got most of this in place, and it's kind of just going into Canvas and organize it. Now, really, what I would do, what I would recommend is to start out. In order to be successful, I would really start out kind of on pen and paper, and just think about, maybe if you want to draw something like this out and say, if students progressing regularly, they're going to go this path. If they make this, they're going to go that way or whatever. But how you do it in Canvas is, so I just saw somebody in the chat ask, how is this done in Canvas? So in Canvas, this is what mastery paths kind of look like. And you're going to say that if a student makes these grades on the 10-point assignments, right, they're going to go this way. So if they make a 0 to 3, they're going to go here, assignment, create your own, or this. You can say that they've got to do this, or you can say that they've got to do both of these, this one and this one, before they can progress. So and I think you can, if this may be actually all of the pages here for this little lesson. If we had another page, we would have the option to add those. So the question is, how did we get here? So whenever you enable mastery paths, whenever you enable those, you'll see that this is actually under a quiz called What's Next. And when you create a quiz, after enabling mastery paths, so just say, I'm going to create a quiz, classic quiz, submit. I'm going to just call it quiz 0, right? And say, here's the mastery path. We're going to say that this quiz is worth how many points? Graded quiz options. I had the questions. Okay, we'll say it's worth 100 points. And we can say if they make 0 to 39, they're going to go, and here is all the items. And an item can be an assignment, a quiz, or discussion, pages, or you can just, almost anything that you can add in Canvas, you can make it part of their path. So you can see that these are all assessments. These are all assessments, and these are assignments, right? You can say, okay, if they make that grade, then they're going to go here. You can say and, okay, if they make this grade, they're going to go here. And if they make this grade, they're going to go here. Or you can even say, they make this grade, Right. So this is the method in which you could you're going to create the path, but so this is how you would do it through. I'm just going to click save. This is the method in which you would do it um, uh, through quizzes. Okay, so that's. Let me see if I.
So my question is, do you have to do it through something like a quiz where the computer grades it, or can it be done through a grade that you assign?
Yes, it can be done through a grade that you assign. So if I go to here to assignment and I click add assignment, right? So mastery pass here, right? So after you grade it, it's going to send them through this path.
Can you attach it to like specific scores on a rubric?
I do think that after it's graded, the rubric is tied to the grade. So yes, I would imagine so, because that's actually a wonderful idea, because it's kind of kicking it up a notch in terms of the decision tree concept. It's kind of when you use rubrics, those are essentially could be easily routed to those decision trees as well. That's a good idea.
Okay, because like we have points on a rubric that are tied to the outcomes about like using the proper citation format, and if they're consistently getting a low score there, I could set it that it routes them back to the lesson about citation formats.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So I mean, at the end of the day, it may seem like this is one of those things that seems like up front it's a lot of it takes a lot of work to kind of set things up, but I think in the long run it will save you a lot of time and actually allow the students to have a better experience. Do you have any more questions?
So,
Okay.
so just hypothetically, if you did what you said, where the students could go through at their own pace, say, how do you make sure they get through it before their time is up?
Yep. So
I mean,
yeah,
that's the problem I have with that idea. I like the idea, but I'm afraid that if they're routed back so many times, they're going to run out of time to finish the class.
So we would really have to think about. I mean, these are going to be tied to due dates. They're going to be tied to due dates anyway, because if you go here to this assignment, right, it's going to have a due date. So, and then after that due date, you're going to route them. After they complete that assessment, you're going to route them to some other path, right? And then when that's done, there may be due dates associated with these as well. So you can think about it course wide, lesson wide, or I think the possibilities are sort of endless. And when I say we want to make time the variable, really there's going to be deadlines, but if I think maybe conceptually we can say it may take some students 2 weeks to get this concept, whereas if others can grasp that concept in 1 week, or 3 or 4 days, let's not keep them back. Let's let them progress through. I think that's conceptually what we're getting to. Do we have any more questions?
So I have one more question. So Is this how people I've seen like in Commons and stuff, and I want to I want to be able to do it. I've seen where people can't, they make it so that they can't go on to the next module until they are able to pass something. Like they
That's
can't go on. Is this how they do it, or is there another way to do that?
there's another way to do that. So
Okay.
okay, and let me show you real quick. So this is a module, right, called Panda Time. Okay, so I'm going to add another module here and call it Bear. Oops. Okay, so whenever you add a module, you will notice this button. You've got the lock and tilt, but you've also got this prerequisite button. You can say they can't progress to this module until they, do something with this module. Right. So if I click add module there, it says prerequisites Panda Time. And you can even, dig down a little bit further and say that, if we actually had a quiz in here, we could say that they've got to make a certain score on that quiz before they can actually access that module. And I can show you real quick here in the dashboard. I've used these in go to courses and all courses. The student, we have a Canvas student training. We got the one for faculty. We also have the one for students, and that's exactly the way that it's designed. So they have to actually go through all of these lessons or pages or whatever, and they've actually got to make a certain score. They got to make a 100 on this quiz before they can access this module, which is the verification page. So if I go here to student view, and I can show you exactly how this looks. If I go to student view, there's like 10,000 students in this course, so it takes a little while. Okay, so start here, and you'll notice that I can't access this verify page because it's telling me that I've got to make at least a 100 on this quiz. So as soon as I make a 100 on that, I can open up this, which is basically just a Qualtrics survey that sends them an automated completion certificate.
Now, I have noticed that if they're using the app, they can see things that you have unpublished or locked. They can still open them. They can't necessarily respond, but they can see them.
Yeah, I noticed that too. Like, for example, if so one way around that is through it's because things are published. So
yeah, it's happening even with stuff that's unpublished. As long as it's there, even if it's unpublished, you can see it from the app. And I've opened the student app, and I can see it in the student app, which is really frustrating because I don't necessarily want them to see the stuff I haven't published yet. And I'm just wondering if that's going to be confusing on the mastery paths, because basically I'm essentially making my own. I didn't know how to do it in this, but I have some students who are so far behind on course assignments that I'm giving them their own module and their own separate assignments. But it's confusing because they can kind of see everything that's in there, and they just have to look at their to-do list to know like which things are assigned to them. And so I'm wondering if once the mastery paths are there, if it removes the stuff that isn't going to be assigned to them in a way that makes it more obvious what they are and are not supposed to look at. I'm hoping that will be the case.
Yeah, that's one of those things where let me see if I go home here. Well, it's almost like It's tough to actually visualize it until we're maybe
You know,
in a class.
I'm wondering if that's something that needs to be put out to Canvas, the company, because there may be something we're not doing that we don't know, or the company needs to fix that, because that's a flaw to me.
Mm-hmm. So if we go to, we can do some research on the community a little bit later, just to make sure that we're actually doing it correctly. But just see what happens. Complete all items. So I do think that with the way this path is set up. So let me click leave student view and go here. Let's see what else. Well, what I'll do is I'll just I'll add a module and I'm going to call it test, and we'll say in this module we're going to have this assignment. Okay. This assignment. Okay, and then I'm going to open it up and edit, create your own focus hill. So, and we're going to say quiz 0, this one, and this one. And if I click save here, let's see what happens. Let's see how that looks. Right. So essentially what we did was let me delete this one. In this module, these students have to complete, I think, all of these assignments. But in the one I made, this is just one assignment that's going to send students down, different paths. But I do think it would be, I do think it would be helpful to kind of have this, kind of written down or outlined using that decision tree before we even start getting into putting it into Canvas.
Yeah, it's really hard to sometimes know what the students actually see, because when I click on student view, I'm not a student, I'm like a generic student, and so it's not necessarily assigning me to the things a particular student has been assigned. It doesn't show me things the way they're seeing it. And then some of them are using browsers that look completely different too from what I'm seeing. And then if I go into the student app, I don't know if I'm seeing everything because I'm a generic student or because they're seeing everything. That's still entirely unclear to me what they actually see. And from student view, I think I'm not getting a clear picture, particularly when I've assigned different things to specific students. When I go into student view, I don't see those things at all, or I see them, but I can't submit on them because I'm not one of those particular students.
Yeah. I wish it had like a view as, some applications have a view as button, and you can view as that person. Yeah, but with the student view, you're just kind of you're just like any other student, and it actually adds you to the grade book and everything. And you're right, especially. That gets particularly tough in like the middle of the semester. If you just imagine you've got this set up right from day one, and you want to look at something in like lesson 8, but if you click student view, you're not going to be able to do that, because you've got to go all the way through. In order, you would have to kind of progress exactly like a student would, which, yeah, you're right. It's frustrating. And I do think Canvas should add a view as button so you can see exactly what those students are seeing. So the view as the student view is actually an account that it creates. So if I click leave student view here, if I'd taken an assessment, it's actually adding a student called test student. And I think if you go into grades, yep, see, so you'll notice that I made a 9 out of 10 on that assessment. It actually creates an account for that test student, which is kind of different. It's okay, but I wish they also had the view as option. And another thing with the test student view is when you try to integrate external tools like WebEx and that sort of thing, it makes it a little bit tough to actually see what students experience, because with that integration, that test student account you're not going to be able to, you can't link that test student account to a Google Drive account or a 365 account or a course eval account. So it kind of makes it a little bit difficult when you're trying to test that level of student experience. I agree. Yeah. So I'm cognizant of your time. For those that want to go ahead and leave, I appreciate you coming, and I'll stick around a few minutes. I think there are some questions in the chat. I appreciate everybody's participation today. I hope this was helpful. As always, I just want to note one more thing. As always, thank you for your participation. Terry Locklear, Office of Online Learning.